series MVP is probably going to be Nick Nurse here, and I know that's a little outside the
Mm,
box, but that's my
I
biggest
like it.
driving reason why I do think this Sixers team is different this year. That for the first time in the entirety of the Joel Embiid era, they have a coaching advantage on a nightly basis. And Thibodeau is great for sure, but I will take Nick Nurse going to bat, getting in the lab, scheming up different defenses, and I do think that he's going to find ways to just interrupt the flow of Jalen Brunson that
Mhm.
teams have not figured out this season. That it's going to be blitzes, it's going to be different looks at them, and I think that they're going to able to stump that Knicks offense enough. And then on the other side, I do think Joel Embiid ultimately rises up and has a little bit of a signature playoff series that I think from the pure statistical standpoint, it's not going to be him having these 70 and 50-point games the way he has during the regular season, but he is going to dominate on both sides, set the tone defensively, show his ability as a playmaker, which he hasn't really done at the playoff stage yet. So I think that Joel Embiid does prove a lot of people wrong. And I think Nick Nurse is going to be the guy leading the charge for this team.
I am a big Nick Nurse guy. I've loved Nick Nurse, even in his Toronto stint. I thought he was kind of a scapegoat when they were,
For
clearing
sure.
house over there. I love his brand of basketball, and that leads me into this about Tibbs too. You had mentioned Tom Thibodeau as a guy that we love his grit and grind. I have to commend Tibbs just because, listen, before the season started, I said I don't think this Knicks team can have championship aspirations with Thibodeau as the head coach. He came into this season not only has his rotations, his adjustments, his ability to get the most out of guys like Deuce McBride, Precious Achua. I mean, even adding Dante into the starting lineup, he's just been pulling all the right strings so far this season. So I have to commend him just because everybody's known Tibbs as this guy that he's going to run your starters into the floor and your superstars into the ground, and then that's all you're going to get. They're going to be burnt by the end of the first round, and that's all that happens. This year just feels like Tom Thibodeau, it's an old dog that learned new tricks. It's blown my mind, quite frankly, because I haven't seen a coach make these types of adjustments, at least a Knicks head coach, in a long, long time. So I'm going to go ahead and say I do have the Knicks in five. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I think it
Wow.
is. I think it is going to be five. I quite frankly do not trust Joel Embiid's knee. I know you said it was a trust thing, and I think that's going to kind of play a big factor here. Whether it does hurt him or ache, or it is all in his head, that's unknown. But I do think that this 76ers team, it reminds me of that same Cavaliers team that we had played in the first round last year, just in the sense that there's a few different sharpshooters that could beat you. There's some depth in some places, lacking in others. But I think ultimately the grit and grind of the Knicks is going to be what edges them out in this series. It's just like the same way that they said when OG got hurt, when Randall got hurt, when Mitch got hurt, they were just out there playing their hardest to try and win basketball games. And I think the MVP is going to be Josh Hart. I think that
Okay.
Josh Hart is the MVP of this series because I think if he can get a triple double the way that he was towards the end of the season, it doesn't even have to be a triple double. If he shows up and he's hustling and giving that, heart literally the way that we've seen in the second half, that post All-Star break, I think that's going to be a big advantage to the Knicks just because they're going to wear out the Sixers on the run and gun type of game. So I anticipate a fantastic series, and I think five is what I think it could be, but it would not shock me whatsoever if it was six, even 7 games. I'd hate for it to go seven because that's a brutal, taxing series on both teams,
Yeah.
and you don't want to go into another series against either Milwaukee or Indiana coming up. Like nobody wants a 7 game series first round.
Yeah.
But I do think this one wraps up in five, and I think home court advantage is pretty big as well, just because obviously it's Madison Square Garden, and I know the Knicks fans are going to be showing up big time at Wells Fargo Center as well, because that's one thing about this Knicks team is we travel deep.